All right, guys, welcome back to the Strong Life Podcast. Very special guest, Olin Kreutz. Olin, I'm pretty sure you're the first pro athlete I've had on the Strong Life Podcast. And so super grateful for you to be here. You're in the Chicago area, correct?
Yeah, I'm Northern Illinois, about 30 miles north of Chicago.
Yeah, and I'm always shocked that you stayed in Chicago, coming from
hmm
Hawaii, that you didn't want to get the hell out of the cold weather.
Oh, I do. I want out, but I tell my kids, I say, kids ruin your best dreams. So they've ruined my life. No, I'm just playing. But uh,
It's funny.
you know, my son, who's my oldest, Joshua, he was moving into high school when I retired. So
Yeah.
we got kind of stuck here. Now we have six, and I have four girls behind my two boys who are actually at the
Yeah.
University of Illinois. They're in school here also, so just kind of they're used to this environment. They love being here.
Yeah.
Don't think that I'm not negotiating every day though about getting out of here and getting to warmer weather.
So, do you have a house in Hawaii or just you do?
I do, and most of my family, pretty much all of my family that I know, are still on the pretty much island of Oahu. But I do have a house in Hawaii. I have my mom and grandma are still there, so my brothers and my dad, and everyone's still out there. So we don't get back much. Obviously, with anybody who has kids knows kids'
Yes.
schedule, and
Right.
it's hard to get them on a plane and fly 9 hours and then fly 9 hours back. And Hawaii's 5 hours behind, but we don't get there much anymore, which pretty much sucks. But I, it's May here. We had a 30-degree day the other day, so
Yeah.
I was complaining a lot in my house again. Like, does anybody ever want to leave to Hawaii? But I don't know. As most dads know, most people ignore you in your house after a while.
That's right. I always say I have two kids, my wife and two dogs. So I say that, you got the two dogs and the three, that's five. I go, out of those five, I'm number 10. Just like
Yeah.
I'm not even
uh,
number six,
I, I
So
had a really good friend, Zach. One day, I was a younger dad, and we were walking on a golf course. Very successful doctor, and he yelled at me across the golf course. And he said, "Olin, if you think anybody in your house cares that you provide and that you give them all this comfortable life, they don't. So don't think they care one bit what you provided for them." And that was good advice from him. So I every time I go home, and like you said, we end up on the bottom of I think we just got a new kitten, and now I'm under the kitten. So whenever I'm at the bottom of the totem pole, I remember his words, and he was a prophet.
that is funny. So what's wild is you did 13 or 14 years in the NFL.
I played 14 years in the NFL.
That's crazy.
It was a blessing, man. Yeah, it was fun, and you don't really know till you get out. It was just kind of every year we were doing the same thing, and I always tell people like, gosh, I did the same thing. I played the same sport from when I was about 14 or 15 years old, and I just went all the way through to when I was 34. So it was a blessing. It was fun. I love football. I still do. I still coach high school football. I coach my kids little league football.
Okay.
As you know, I train linemen in my gym.
Yes.
We train all the time. Just trying to figure out how to block people, how to train to block people. So it's been my life's work, and I've been blessed to be able to do it.
Yeah. So I think the average time in the NFL is a year and a half. Am I correct about that?
Yeah, I don't think it's very long. I don't think it's very long. It's tough. It's a tough, sport to make it in. Um, I'm sure we'll get into. I had some advantages and things that I got to do that helped me make it that long.
Right. So what do you think would be the best place to start? Because I've seen the gym you trained in
hmm
Hawaii at the house.
hmm hmm
I remember Donnie Thompson, Super D, sending me a text message many years ago when you and Roberto Garza spent time with him, and
hmm
yeah, these linemen from the Bears reached out to me and they just wanted to come down and train. I said, that's
hmm
it. They just texted you and you're training with them. He said, yeah, we're training all day. So I'm not sure.
There's so
Uh,
many places to start along this
yeah,
journey, right? This
let's
story, yeah.
go. Interesting. Let's go to your early
hmm
influences in training, because I see what I see now. I'll share it on the blog, the videos you post on Instagram. You're posting hand fighting and implementing martial arts. You work
hmm
with Dr. John Quint, and you guys
hmm
are really dialed in on the training to preserve the body, to build a durable football player. So let's go back to early days because, I mentioned Jack Canberra, 50 barbell.
Mm-hmm.
He had mentioned, maybe I don't remember it. It was so many years ago that he remembered you as a kid. And I think he mentioned
Mm-hmm.
family members were wrestlers or pro wrestlers and also like a drag race, like race car
Drag
drivers.
race, yeah. So that was his dad, Gentleman Jack, and he. You would have to do, Zach. You would have to do 9 podcasts on his dad and that. Those guys in the geez, well, that would be 60s and 70s in Hawaii.
Yeah.
They need a movie on themselves, to be honest. So
Oh,
that
damn.
group, my grandfather George Perry and Jack Cameron, and then even my grandfather's son, Uncle Bruce Perry, and those guys need their whole. We don't have enough time today to go through all those guys, but the one common denominator was they love the weight room, right?
Yeah.
They all love to work out, they love to train, they love to get strong. Anyone who's seen my posts on Instagram, and I think you have, I have my grandfather's 205 dumbbells. I have the 160-pound dumbbells, so 205-pound dumbbells, and all those pictures I post. What a lot of people don't realize is they built that themselves. A lot of that stuff they put together, you can see like a deadlift rack, which Rogue sells, they mass produce nowadays.
Yeah.
Those guys are training that in the 50s and 60s, and they had squat racks and bench. And it was just an amazing place and atmosphere. And like you probably know, the most important thing in the gym is the culture, and the culture
Yes.
that builds strong guys and demands that this is the way we work. This is the way we work. We train with this kind of intensity. And it's just the standard was set for us, and everything was. My grandfather had a saying, and he said, "There's no substitute for power." And what he meant was, whatever your definition of power was, if you're strong, there's just no substitute for it. And he believed in just getting strong, no matter what you were doing in life. We had baseball players. He had baseball players, boxers, weightlifters, power lifters, football players, wrestlers, as you had mentioned. And we were just all chasing strength together on the same program, right? So it's been, and if I go even before that, my dad was into the weight room. My dad loves lifting weights, and he still lifts weights now. He was the first guy to introduce me to weights. We trained at a place called the Gym Honolulu, and I remember Dorian Yates coming in there when he would
I've
come to
heard of it.
Hawaii. Yeah, so we trained there for. I trained there. Actually, was the first gym I trained at, and I got I got hurt. It's such a long story, but I got like shattered my foot in high school, in my sophomore year in high school, and I couldn't play that year. And then my journey of like recovering and lifting weights kind of started, right? And ended up in my grandfather's gym when I was 17, 18 years old, right before I went to college. And it's just been a weight room and chasing, trying to get strong and trying to find things. And I remember going through, Zach, if you can believe, I did obviously my college work. I think people know the name Bill Gillespie was my
Oh,
strength coach in
yes.
college. Yes.
He's the
So
best.
I've run through, Rick Hughley was another strength coach in college, Rush Reeder when I got to the NFL. And it's just always kind of been this journey, of trying to learn things. Rusty Jones is now at the Indianapolis Colts. And I learned from him, and I got to meet Gray Cook, who's the FMS guy, right? Functional Movement System.
Yeah.
And I got to meet Gray when he came in. Actually, when I retired, kind of sought Gray out and try to learn a little bit of the FMS system. We still do some chops and band stuff that Gray taught, in my gym. So just the journey's been unbelievable, really. I mean, I like you asked if I had an hour, we'd need 3 hours, right, to try to go over the strength journey I was on, but. Just always been chasing a strength game. And then, the story of Donnie Thompson and Westside Barbell come into play. And, me and Garza actually, a golf day, and not to I don't want to ruin Garza's reputation, but a golf day turned into a drinking day because of a storm. And he showed me this video of somebody hanging upside down. And it was Donnie talking about his training and how he recovers. And, we were in a bar and we said, why don't we go see this guy?
Yeah.
And anybody who knows Donnie Thompson, I mean, one of the best human beings I've ever met, and one of the smartest in the strength game. The guy is amazing. He's amazing in the strength game, extremely intelligent. We went there. We didn't know what to expect. I remember telling Garza, I said, man, if this sucks, we'll just play golf and go home, because we were in South Carolina anyway. Well, it didn't. And we trained for hours, and I was retired. So I was just training. Yeah, I was retired already, and I was just Garza said, if I'm going, you got to come with me. So I went down there. Thank God I did. Because to be honest, Zach, I was doing the hot yoga, jogging, lose weight thing, and I felt terrible. I
Oh,
felt really, I mean, I was down to maybe, I don't know, I'd lost 50 or 60 pounds. And everybody tells you, do mobility, lose weight, you feel great. And they were wrong, completely wrong. And I did not feel good at all. And Donnie just gave me this West Side Louis Simmons barbell system of training that kind of started me along the path of getting my own gym, sled work, and just another way to train, which I didn't know while I played. I didn't know box squats. I didn't know board presses. I didn't know all these things that were actually there for you to work out with. So we started doing some of that. And Donnie, one night over, I think we were drinking a little bit of whiskey down there, and he said, Olin, if you want to get strong and healthy again and stay strong and healthy, you probably should open your own gym. And that's where I got my idea of opening my own
interesting.
place here, which made sense with my grandfather, right? My grandfather's gym, and it just kind of, well, why wouldn't I have my own place? So that's kind of how I got into that. And then, like you mentioned, I mean, I've met Tom Barry from Westside Barbell,
Oh,
Shane
yeah.
Sweat. And then
Yes.
I've been incredibly blessed to meet John Quinn. I mean, I heard him called the other day on the Westside Barbell podcast, and it said Tom Barry's Westside Barbell, and a guy on there called him the human MRI machine. And I'm
Yeah.
sure John won't. I don't know if John will like that or not, but it's true. And he's incredibly smart. He teaches me a lot. He's almost become a mentor in the strength game of just explaining to you exactly like, this is what we do. Well, here's what you're doing. This is the training you're doing. This is the strength component that you are working on with the lineman. What are you doing with him now? Oh, okay, you're doing this actually. So I just bounce things off of him, and he has a great way. He's a great teacher actually of explaining the things we're doing, and we've come together, and I'm sure a lot of people have seen we have lineman special strength now, where we have a system to train a lineman,
Yeah.
constantly growing, constantly evolving. But the like I told you, I'm actually trying to cut this strength story short because it's so long. The chase for strength, and as you know from your people you're training, you're never right. You're constantly evolving, constantly moving. Something just happened to me. My daughter blew her ACL out playing volleyball.
Oh,
Right, so I'm in my mind. I'm in like, what am I doing wrong? I have to figure out now. It just always, the strength game always knocks you back. It always humbles you, and you're always trying to find a way to like
yeah.
train people and help them. And gosh, what were we doing wrong in our training that her knee didn't hold up?
Is she
So
in high school? What
she's
level?
in high school. She's a sophomore. We don't have. We need a whole nother podcast for how stupid these club sports are. But she's
Yeah.
involved in that. Yeah, she's involved in that, and not a big fan of it, but like she loves it, so it's hard to take it away from her. But
Yes.
the kids no break, which is, I'm sure for a strength coach like you and someone like me who has kids, you're trying to always find ways to train them and keep them healthy and keep them moving properly, and they don't do a bunch of sports anymore. And but anyway, long, but she is a sophomore, hopefully back for next year. But that is one of the things I love about the strength game is you never have all the answers.
Yeah, you can do everything quote unquote right and correct. And I always tell parents, sports are uncertain. You could do everything right, but when it's competition time, there's no absolutes. So,
Mm,
my daughter plays tennis, and I know the
okay.
volleyball club system. Tennis is also year round. I think if we lived in Florida, it would be even crazier. But she
Mm-hmm.
broke her wrist, and she was
Oh,
like, couldn't figure out what, my wrist is killing me. Finally, we get an X-ray, and she broke her wrist when she was warming up for a tournament, not from falling. And so, like you as a dad, you start looking at, did we do enough vitamin C, enough calcium? Is it
right.
not enough of this? And you go down that rabbit hole. But
Mm,
you playing 14 years in the NFL, that is, I mean, I think, I don't know what percent I've heard, but I've heard it's like very, very rare to make the 10-year mark. And I think
mm-hmm.
I've heard a year and a half tends to be the norm in the NFL. Why do you think, what are some of the things you think got you to 14 years?
Mm-hmm. I think the training did. My grandfather used to say, in the off season, put your armor on, right? And that's that was the weight work. He would say the weight and the muscle that protects your body. from John Quinn calls like the chaos you're about to see on the field, right? There's just like you
Yes.
just mentioned, that you can't control that environment. There's so much chaos. So in this controlled environment, you have to create this so to speak, like armor, and get yourself ready for what you're about to do. And we all know football is a violent sport, but there's a lot of sports that are violent and quick moving, and anything can happen at any time. So the number one thing for me, it was the weight room. The weight room was where I went to prepare for the season. I felt like I was training harder than everybody else. I felt like I was working. My best friend Dominic Raiola, he was my training partner growing up. He trained with me and my grandfather. He played 14 years, so obviously the training worked, right?
Yeah.
So we both played 14 years. We both played a lot of games. We both like to imagine we played the game a certain way. We played the game intense, got after people. It was kind of a standard that was set for us in the gym we trained at. So, you know, John Quinn likes to say it's like a leverage point. Do you have leverage points? Is your training a leverage point versus the people you're going against? Is it training you or detraining you? And I think now looking back, just learning more and more about strength training, what a leverage point my grandfather's gym was for us to be able to train all the time, to train that hard, that intense in that environment. Some of the workouts would be 3 hours. Three and a half hours. He had this like slab of cement in his bag room because it was outside in Hawaii, so it would get hot under his house.
Yes.
And some guys would just be laying on the cement in between sets to try to cool down because it was just constant. We would do 4 sets of 8, and he would say like, you would do a set, and he'd say like, I hope you're not counting that because that doesn't count, right? And it's just if you're not over a certain weight, we're not counting those. You can warm up as much as you want, but you're gonna go heavy and you're gonna get your sets and reps. And I just felt like when I got to camp, I would notice like, before though in those days, not anymore, but in those days you would do right like 10 practices in a row in full pads, right?
Yes.
Morning at 7 a.m. full pads. 2 or 3 o'clock, you're back in full pads. You're doing 9-on-7s. You're doing the hitting. You're doing the going against big guys. And I just felt as guys were breaking down, I actually felt like I was going the other way. I felt like, like I didn't know why everybody was tired around me. Well, that had to be the training.
When you were in the NFL, did you go back home to Hawaii to train with your grandfather a lot?
I did. I'd go home every off season, and I'd go home every summertime. So I'd get at least 6 weeks. Before, as you know, these colleges have gotten crazy. Like my sons are home now, who play at University of Illinois. They're home now only for a month. They'll be back there June again.
Right.
Right before, we would get 2 or 3 months to go home, train, and you'd have to come home just for camp. So I would always get home. Obviously, the farther I got along in my career, I just didn't negotiate with anybody. Like I was going home to train. Right.
Right.
So the only thing, honestly, that kept me here was my kids went to school, and they got old enough for school. And I think at one point, when I look back now, that made as great as it is that I played 14 years, that may have shortened my career because I didn't get home and train anymore. So just things you don't know as you look back, how important that gym was for me training.
So it was a basic. I'll post a photo, but it was like some benches, dip bar, a bunch of dumbbells, free weights. I mean, it looked like I'm a little older than you, but like a typical high school weight room of the late 80s, early 90s was just
Mm-hmm.
super basic. I also agree. I think today we have so many options that and also what's interesting, you probably see it on social media, is strength is almost like a bad word. Everybody's like they're too
Mm-hmm.
strong, it makes them slow. But you mentioned like your grandfather said like power. And so it sounds like he's mentioning we're we're getting strong and explosive at the same time. But it's interesting to see like in the sports performance field, strength is like not everybody's like, it's so easy to get strong. Like, I'm always like, no,
Mm-hmm.
it takes balls, it takes guts, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not easy. Maybe it's like a simple formula, but it's very hard to do. So when
Mm-hmm.
you stopped going back to Hawaii as much, where did you train? Did you train at the stadium with the Bears, or did you find a private coach? What did you guys do?
Yeah, well, I trained at the stadium, and I actually found a guy who was really good eventually, but this was like later in my career. And I found his name is Mike Beistel, and he was a Poliquin performance guy. So I went to Apollo Performance Center here, and he actually has Bisto Performance Center, and he helped me stay on the strength path of at
What was
least
his
keeping me
last name
where
again? Olin?
Bisto, Bystol. And he ran the Poliquin Performance Center here,
I
and now he
remember
has the
that.
Bisto Performer. Yeah, he's a very good trainer, very smart, and
Yeah.
at least I had somewhere to train to try to get strong again. Because, like you said, a lot of strength game had moved away. A lot of people had moved away from the strength game,
So weird.
and it's really weird. And like you're saying, I always tell even my sons who will be here today to train, no one does the strength anymore because that's what's hard to do. But to get strong, to rest 2 minutes for your set, and then go ahead and try to get 4 to 7 more because, and you know you're going to suffer, and hit a rest pause. I always tell people, I'm like, when you go in somewhere and they set up all those stations, that's the easy thing to do, right? To sit down for a kid, take 2 minutes, stay off your phone, and then try to go get the intensity up and hit a heavy set.
Yeah.
Getting strong, as you know, is hard, and it takes years, right? It takes years to get strong. So me and you both, we can bounce past each other back and forth on this, right? Because we know, I mean, everybody knows that. And to be honest, I tell guys to come to my gym, let's hope they're not training for strength, because what an advantage for us. Let's hope they all keep doing the same thing, because people just don't want to train and get strong anymore. They all want to stretch their psoas, and that's fine if you want to do that. But eventually you have to go and chase strength, try to put on muscle, try to get bigger, try to protect your body. We've talked about putting on that armor because,
Body armor.
especially in a game of football, man, strength is the game, right? Especially, and for line for everybody, strength is the game.
Yeah, it's interesting. I work at the high school level. I got my private facility, but I tell these athletes, you guys should have a little fear because of what we see happening with the injuries, the concussions. I always tell them, I go, have football players broken bones, have kids gotten paralyzed in this sport? Yes. Then you better take this training so seriously, because if you're not, you're a liability. What's interesting too is, like you mentioned, do you have are your boys twins? Because they're both
No, they're a year and a half apart.
so it's at the college sector, the amount of training ramped up. And I think in the NFL, it's like getting less, like the amount of what would they call it? You got the OTAs is how many weeks? 6 weeks now?
Yeah, I don't. They were changing it as soon as I got in, but you're right. The amount of work has come way down because of the new collective bargaining agreement, and they're saying that they did it to protect the players. And some of the coaches, to be fair, they would get crazy with that amount of hours you were in there. But
Right.
now the NFL is not. They don't develop. It's not a developmental league anymore at all, right? They're not going to help. It's too hard. Like, they don't spend enough time there to get strong, and then they don't transfer into the skill work, right? Get strong, change your body, and then become a better football player. They're not doing much of that anymore. So it's an interesting thing they got going on in the NFL anymore, which is why, like, you see all these specialized trainers that popped up, because NFL players need it. That's why they go to these other places. And here's the crazy thing, Zach. The NFL is making all this money. The payers have to pay themselves to develop, right? But in the NFL building, they're paying these strength coaches and trainers and whoever else is on staff millions of dollars, but they don't have to do anything to develop the players. It's actually a fascinating thing because of the rules they've put on the collective bargaining agreement to train guys. It's a fascinating thing to watch right now, what's going on in the NFL and how many players have to go outside the building to actually develop to become football players.
Right. I've seen it. I've got some friends coaching in the NFL, and they said, like, we can provide them with the program, but we can't coach them. But if we see them doing it wrong, we might. It's this. They're in the building at the same time, but they can't, like, say, "Hey, do a 7 reps instead of 5." So a lot. Very strange. I know we don't have a lot of time, so you mentioned, like, the developing. And I will embed, like, some of the Instagram photos and videos on my blog from what you have, but you have a legit training center. So we have the strength area. You have like a cage for jujitsu and stand-up fighting. Were you doing, I think you mentioned, I had messaged you on Instagram, you had the background in wrestling and Muay Thai. When did
Well,
that?
I've done a little bit of so I wrestled in high school, obviously,
Yep.
growing up. This jiu-jitsu and stuff through my career. Always found boxing and Muay Thai. I just kind of always felt like an advantage was to try to educate my hands. I thought everybody was trying to
Yes.
educate their feet. I didn't. I wasn't necessarily trying to become a boxer. I was just trying to move my hands, hit targets, move my feet, hit targets with my hands, and that was kind of, like after I got you'd get strong right first, and then after I felt like I was strong enough, I was trying to look while keeping my strength at the level I needed it, trying to look for other things to do to take my game to another level and something that would equate to football, which is always moving your feet, using your hands, eye targets, and I always thought people throwing at me, and if I could find my target, that's big for football, right? So
Yeah.
eye discipline is huge, but um, you know, um, I've been lucky, like even yesterday in the gym, we boxed here, and it's always just kind of throwing something in. As you know, sometimes I feel like the energy in the gym gets a little weird when it's just weights. So sometimes
Yes.
everybody can, it may sound weird, but sometimes everybody can punch each other in the face. It's like it relaxes everybody. So, like yesterday we had one of those moments, I said like everybody's at a campfire after punching each other and everyone's so happy and it's kind of released all this bad tension. But
Great.
yeah, we have fun with it. The cage is used for a lot of things. I had Mark Vives. He's a he runs the new breed training center here
Yep.
in Niles, Illinois, and he is a monster. But he's the guy I did jiu-jitsu with. He helped me design that part of
It's amazing.
my gym, and in the gym he had he had Muay Thai guys and he has boxing guys. I still have some of his trainers come here now and help us box. But so in the gym, Donnie helped me design kind of the strength part, the powerlifting part. So Donnie actually helped me order all that equipment, and then I did the cage and stuff, and I just kind of put everything I've ever done into my gym,
That's the
right? And
best.
yeah, so I do some hot yoga sometimes, so I have a hot room. And in there
Ah,
now, Donnie calls it the yuppie body tempering room because in there I have like a heated body tempering room. So Donnie, Donnie's like that's where like yuppies do body tempering. He's right, but we go into our heated room and I have these big body tempering tools and we do that. And obviously John Quinn is a big part of the gym, and we do a lot of pels and rails from the FR system and the functional range anatomy system and Andrew Spina, and we're trying to organize everything into one thing that John talks about a lot is give the athlete exactly what they need. And as a strength coach, as sure as you know, that's kind of the puzzle piece you're looking for, right? It's hard to
you,
find that piece, so
you have
always looking
a
for it.
you have what I call, I know you're not saying it's complete, but you really do. You talking, I'm saying to myself, man, I wish I had a extra room with a wrestling mat where the guys could
Mm-hmm,
hand fight and wrestle, and I could
mm-hmm,
teach linemen hand fighting.
mm-hmm,
I've been really shocked at how many, being at the high school level, how many of our linemen will not wrestle, but they'll go to these places that just hit pads. And I say to
mm-hmm,
myself, when I watch the guys hitting pads, going to these things, I'm like, man, if you wrestled, you could hand fight with your eyes closed. You'd
mm-hmm.
understand, how to even grab somebody's jersey, all little things. And ironically, at University of Washington now, Ben Creamer is there. He's a hand fighting coach. Do you know Ben?
Mm. I don't. I
He's
don't.
a
What a great idea.
yeah, judo black belt
Mm,
and has a boxing background. But they also brought him in for sports science, like the data collection. But I posted a video a while ago of him showing the guys hand fighting, and I love it. I'm like, man, because I've at least seen
can
since the
you hear me, Zach?
70s.
You're cutting out a little bit.
Oh, sorry, brother. Froze up. All right, let me know if you hear me. I think you froze up. Hang tight, guys. Hang tight, guys. All right. You hear me, Olin?
I think I lost you, Zach.
Oh, there we go. You hear me, brother? You hear me? Check, check, check. Oh, there we go. You got me?
Sorry about that, man. I think I
No,
lost you.
all good. So I was saying, I've seen guys like Randy White, the
Hmm.
Manster. He was doing like martial arts, Jeet Kune Do, and Eskrima in the late
Hmm.
70s. There's old videos on YouTube showing football players doing it. It's like we've gotten away from this cross training. And
Hmm.
ironically, your buddy, it's Mark Vives, right? Mark,
Mark Vives, yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's his facility called New Breed, right? It's called New Breed.
Hmm. Hmm.
You're from Hawaii, so I was training in shoot fighting and MMA in the late
Hmm.
90s, early 2000s, and I remember following the Inoue brothers, and they were from
Hmm.
Hawaii, Ensign and
Yeah.
Egan. And
That's in Egan, Illinois. Yeah.
yeah, and I think Ensign, his place in Japan was called New Breed. So
Oh, was it really?
I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah. So
Well,
I'm like,
Hawaii's a big
oh
martial
yes,
arts, and we punched a heavy bag all the time at my grandfather's house. So it's always kind
nice.
of, people say in Hawaii, if you go watch a street fight, it's almost like watching a UFC fight. Everyone's trained there, right? So
Yeah, I was
people
told that.
they love it there, right? It's a warrior culture, and everyone loves martial arts and fighting and hitting the bag and learning some kind of discipline. So interesting, like I don't know if you ever heard of, if you like hand fighting for linemen, Tunch Ilkin, he just
Oh
passed
yeah.
away.
Oh, he
And
passed away.
Tunch, yeah, he passed away. He had Lou Gehrig, so rest in peace to Tunch. But he had taught he had come up with a whole hand fighting system
He
with
created the
the
pad on the wall, right?
pad. But he's got like you're saying, he has a hand sensitivity system where your eyes are closed, and then he goes through all the knock them down, knock them up, sweep, forklift. He teaches you how to trap someone's hands off your chest. It's a system I still use now, right? I still use the Tunch system when I teach hand fighting in my gym, right? And it's just kind of like it all works together, like you're saying. And what we've been trying to do is, because you only have so much energy to do all that stuff.
Right.
Like, where do we fit it all in? The skill part in with the strength part. When do we do the skill? So we just like I've started to do, and obviously I'll keep mentioning his name. He's been such a big influence on me. John Quint, with him is just kind of, where do we put it in? Where do we splash in some skill here, or isometrics overcome by dynamics skill wise after you do your central nervous system training and all this kind of stuff. We're trying to get into where, like you're saying, the old timers were doing it, right? Like it was working. So why did
Yeah.
we stop? So I think we stopped because us old timers, guys like me and you, we didn't know when to stop before, right? We didn't know when our biology ran out, right? We didn't care. No one
That
cared.
is
Like
funny.
if I would have mentioned my psoas to my grandfather, they probably would have slapped me. So I didn't
That's
mention
right.
stuff like that, right? So I remember the first time I brought the bands home, he was not happy, right? Everybody's using bands now, but first time I did chops and stuff, man, I don't want to tell you the things he was calling me in his gym. So, hey, but where does it all fit? Where do, I'm sure it can all be used. It's just, I think sometimes that guys get down this like path of like, this is all I do. Where like, no,
Correct.
you like give the athlete what he needs, right? And Gussick, I don't know if you know, Gussick came in here.
Oh yeah.
He's
Jay.
conjugate tactical, and I think he says a way, not the way,
The
and I
way,
like that.
yes.
Yeah, I like when he says that, because he's right. Right, because I'll get caught on like, this is the only thing that works, which is not true either. Like, even if I say it, don't believe me. That's not, it's not
It's
true. So
just
it's
be
it's just interesting.
open-minded.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What does John say with the hand fighting, or what have you come up with when you guys are training the linemen there? And
Hmm.
also for the people listening, I will link it up, but I wrote down the website, I check it out. It's linemanspecialstrength.com or lineman special strengths.
LymanSpecialStrength.com.
Yep.
And
So
I hope I'm right.
yeah, I looked it up earlier.
Yeah,
What have you
yeah.
guys found, or does it depend on the player? Like, oh, we're going to throw in some hand fighting as the warm up, as a quote
Yeah,
unquote
those
dynamic
guys, like,
warm up.
with high school guys, those guys are very developed. When we're doing hand fighting, those are the guys who are very advanced, right? Most guys, we have to save all their energy to get strong. Like,
Mm,
most guys are just not strong enough. Now, there's freaks, right? There's guys who wake up in
sure.
the morning and they're just going to kill people, right? It's just, those aren't the guys. I always tell people, like, if you're that guy, I'll let you know. Like, you don't have to worry about it. You'll ask me, what should I do today? And I'll say, well, that's up to you. And we get some of those guys here, right? They walk in, And I'm like, well, you're probably going to be pretty good. You just got to maintain yourself, right? They were born like that. They need to thank their mom and dad for what they gave them. Even then, eventually they have to train. But most people, it's strength, right? Like it's funny because I was telling somebody the other day, like I feel like I'm probably the best at teaching skill, which would make sense since that's what I did for so long. By
Hmm.
skill, I mean offensive line play, power, kick step, angles off the ball, how to use your hands, all that kind of stuff, hand fighting, like we talked about. Most guys just need strength, to be honest, Zach, and I don't go very far away from that.
That's
Like I
amazing to
don't,
hear it.
yeah. Most guys just have to get strong, but um, I will put in now. Once they've trained for a while and they look strong enough and in shape and they're headed to playing football, right after their dynamic effort bench, maybe we'll do some hand fighting. Just
That's
quick
awesome.
doses, just because John told me to put it in after you turn their central nervous system on. So they're
Skill.
on, they're fired up, a little bit of skill, and then we'll go back to our accessories, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, it's a skill integration. This is very
Mm.
inspiring to make me want to, expand the gym. What did your two boys wrestle in high school? Because Illinois is big wrestling.
They both wrestled, and I've had them wrestling since they were 5 or 6 years old. They both boxed for a long time with some trainers and
Oh,
stuff just to teach them hands. And I just think it's good for boys to do
oh
things
yes.
man to man contact, and it humbles them, which is good. Sometimes you
Yeah.
get your ass kicked, so you have to get back up and always get in an arena that you're not very good at. So you have to learn, you have to grow. There's guys. I mean, I remember going in gyms when I was a professional athlete and just getting my butt handed to me. Right, guys are just so good at what they did,
Yes.
and it just showed you that skill was as important as strength sometimes in that area. So learned a lot from that. But yes, they both wrestled, they both box, and they both still do a little bit of it while they're training for football.
I feel like the greater your skill, the more applicable your strength is. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what you guys are marrying them together. Are both your boys? Are they big guys? Are they linemen or what positions?
My oldest son, Josh, is a center like I am. He's about the size I was when I played. He's
Okay,
about 290s, 6'1", 6'2". And then my son, James, is a linebacker. He's about 6 feet, 6'1". He's about 230, 240. So
nice.
they're both training now. And they're here now. They actually just got back yesterday. My food bill went through the roof
Oh yeah.
with them home. So they'll be here this morning to train with a couple other guys.
I think they might because they're in the Big Ten.
Mm,
So if you come out to Rutgers, you have to let me know. I don't know if
I
they play
will.
Rutgers here in New Jersey or they'll be in Illinois. I'm not sure. Keep me posted.
I will. I will.
Yeah, I'll take you guys out for a nice steak dinner.
That'd be
Well,
awesome.
let's close it out because I know you got to go. Real
Mhm,
quick about your gym. You told me a while back, like I think you said you purchased the building.
mhm.
So you
The
bought the
the
building,
unit.
the
I
unit.
purchased the unit. Yeah, I purchased the unit here. I think I rented it in 2014 as the years went on. Purchased it, and I just kind of filled it out. And it's more just it's a private facility. It's invite only. And it's mostly just linemen. I just have linemen. I have some older guys that come in. Mark comes in to train sometimes before his tournaments that he competes in. So we have I have a pretty small group. It's getting bigger. Like we talked about, these linemen are looking for places to train. These athletes are looking for places to
Yeah,
train because they don't let them in the building they don't let them in these $1 billion facilities.
crazy. Yeah, that is
you know,
crazy.
I don't know. It's like nowadays it's almost like if you mention something that's common sense, everybody gets mad at you. You're like
That's right.
you have all these ice tubs and hot tubs in these weight rooms. Why aren't the players allowed to train in there? So
It's insane.
uh, they're looking for a place to train and develop their game. And I feel like I have a little bit of insight on train on linemen and playing for a long time, and like we talked about. And it's funny, but Zach, when they walk in, I mean, we always end up back at strength.
I
Usually
love to
most
hear
guys
that.
who are looking for a missing component, it's usually what they're missing, right? It's usually where they can get an advantage over somebody because, like you said, still little people are actually training for strength now, right?
Yeah, it's
So
so weird. So how do they contact you through Instagram? Or they a friend of a friend?
yeah, Instagram. A lot of guys I started with. A few guys started with Sam Muster for Alex Bars. I started with them a while ago. They're both out of Notre Dame. I played for a guy named Harry Heastan here, who a lot of people consider maybe the best O-line skill coach in the world. He just retired, but I would go back when he was at Notre Dame. I would go back to help him in spring ball, and I met these guys. And he asked me one day, like, "Can they train with you at your gym?" And I said, "Yeah, I don't. That's fine." And like when you start training these guys, it's kind of like, gosh, I want to get them better. I want to give them what they need. So we've just been kind of on this journey of training linemen and trying to get them better and trying to get them to take the next step in their career.
It's inspiring to me because it makes me want to have a wrestling mat. What I did at my first location is we were next to a commercial gym that had like a grass front lawn area, and we would make the kids wrestle on the front lawn. And I remember the first time it took like 7 minutes for somebody to wrestle a kid. He was always like, "Somebody wrestle me." And they were so used to having, like the referee and the mat. And then finally
Yeah.
somebody wrestled him. We recorded them. So on YouTube, it's like underground strength wrestle offs. And it's like slippery on the grass. And I remember having linemen do it on the grass, and it just took them out of their element. And,
Yeah.
it's always like, do I have the space? And so this is just inspiring to hear. Like,
Mhm.
I think strength coaches, I like to say sport performance coaches, you need to expand what's available beyond the weights to do what you're doing,
Mhm.
which is the integration of skill under the same roof. Or, hey, we're going to do dynamic effort bench. Now you're going to hand fight, or you're going to
Mhm.
pummel. You know
Mhm.
who did that? The Russian wrestlers did that in the 60s, 70s, 80s, because the Russian wrestling coach was also their strength coach. He was one of the same. They didn't go to different things. It was all under one roof. So
Mhm.
you guys are doing it great. So I will link everything up, linemanspecialstrength.com. I'll link up your Instagram for people to follow you, see what you're doing. I love it, man. I wish you would share more.
Yeah, I'm not very good at it. I know
That's great though.
I always tell people, I'm like, I know why people hire people to do the video stuff. It's just so hard in the middle of the workout to stop,
It's
put a
annoying.
phone in your hand, and start recording people. So
Yeah.
I don't do much of it. People I know, they're always wondering. I think we should probably do more. It's just good for people to see it. Like you're talking about. Just yesterday, we did a recovery day, basically designed by John Quint. Um, and the FR, the functional range anatomy systems, Andrew Spina, them. We learned a lot from them. Just hip rotations, moving our spine, loading our spine cars, hip cars. But after that, we did a little bit of boxing. And when you're not punching mitts with the boxing guy, we were doing pummeling on the side with each other, just upper
So
body
good.
wrestling. So
Man,
just
that
like
is
you're
so
saying, it's
good.
just trying to integrate everything and teach people how to because putting force through a barbell and putting it through a man is very different. So teaching them how to do that is just always an interesting journey.
Man, I love it. If I was in your area, I would be in there.
Oh,
It's
we would
so
have a
good.
blast. We would have
Nice.
fun. We really enjoy it. But I appreciate Zach you having me on
Thank you,
and
brother.
letting me talk because to me like that this is the things I think that young athletes need to hear nowadays, that
Yes,
you actually have to train and get strong, and that's actually what's going to keep you healthy.
you're right. I'm going to so this will go on the Strong Life podcast, and I'm going to share it for the Underground Strength Gym podcast so our parents listen to it. And you definitely got to let me know if you guys come to Rutgers. Did Rutgers go to you guys last season? Do you remember?
I don't know if they played Rutgers last year. I don't think they did, right? I don't think I would remember because I know Shiano's defense. I would remember if their tilted nose guards are going against the centers. I love watching that matchup. I think I don't know who Gray uses as his D line coach, but I think they're really good with their hands and their technique and all that kind of stuff. Shiano's defense has always played tough. I don't remember them last year. I could be wrong, but I don't think they played
I'll
them
look.
last year. So maybe they played
Okay.
them this year.
I'll check it out. And then one of the kids I train comes here for the summers. Coach Golden, his dad is at Notre Dame. So they have a
Okay.
house in this little beach town right next to us. So I remember he was like, Zach, his son would come in. It was 7th grade. And he
Mm-hmm.
said, I really love what you done for my son. And you know what? We got him strong, fast, throwing heavy med balls, light med balls, like
Mhm.
stuff like what you're saying. So I want to thank you again, Olin. This was great. Everybody, thank you for listening. For show notes, you could link or look below for the links to connect with Olin and the resources available. And Olin, hang tight just so I could say goodbye to you. I'll stop recording.